There is a specific experience that most people have had, at least once in a social setting. The experience of being in the room and not quite being in the room, of contributing to a conversation and watching it move past your contribution as though it didn't land, of existing in a group and feeling, with a certainty that is difficult to explain, that the group would not notice your absence. And the disorienting thing about this experience is that it doesn't match your internal sense of yourself. You are engaged. You are trying. You are genuinely interested in the people around you. And something is not translating some gap between how you experience yourself and how others are experiencing you that you cannot identify because you cannot see yourself from the outside. The psychology of social presence, how and why some people register with others, while others don't, has been studied extensively. And what the research finds consistently disrupts the intuition that presence is mainly about personality, confidence, or charisma. It is primarily about behavior. Specific, identifiable behaviors that send or fail to send the signals that the social brain uses to determine whether another person is genuinely engaged, genuinely available, and worth attending to. And these behaviors are mostly operating below the level of deliberate choice, which is why understanding them requires a kind of observation of oneself that most people have never been prompted to do. These are 5 of the behaviors most responsible for social invisibility, and each one contains, inside its mechanism, the explanation for why it produces the effect it does. The first behavior is physical contraction in social spaces. This is not about taking up physical space in the assertive, performative sense. It is about the specific body language of someone who has learned, often from experience, that being seen carries risk, shoulders slightly inward, eye contact brief, and then redirected. The unconscious arrangement of the body that says, in a language older than words, I am not demanding your attention, I will not impose. And the social brain, which is reading these signals continuously and automatically, takes the message at face value. It does not attend to what does not appear to be requesting attention. Invisibility, in many cases, is not imposed by others. It is invited by the person experiencing it, through physical signals that are genuine expressions of their learned relationship with being seen, operating continuously and unconsciously in every room they enter. The second behavior is speaking in ways that pre-qualify your own contributions, not the explicit version where someone literally says, "This is probably a bad idea," the subtler version. The slight rise at the end of a statement that turns it into a question. The addition of "I think," or "maybe," or "I don't know," at the end of a fully formed thought, the trailing off before the sentence has completed its arc. Each of these micro-patterns accomplishes the same thing. It instructs the listener about how much weight to assign to what was just said before they've had a chance to assess it themselves. And the instruction is not much. The social brain, which is processing these signals automatically, adjusts its response accordingly. The idea itself might be excellent. The delivery has already argued for its dismissal. The third behavior is responding to social situations with adaptation rather than presence. This is perhaps the subtlest item on the list, the behavior of someone who has learned to read the room so well that they disappear into it. They pick up, immediately and accurately, the social temperature of any environment they enter. They adjust their behavior, their language, their opinions, their emotional register to match what the situation appears to require. And the effect, paradoxically, is that the other people in the room don't quite know who they are, because who they are keeps calibrating to fit the context. There is no stable target to know. Social connection requires something to connect to a consistent, coherent self that can be encountered across different contexts. The person who adapts completely to every environment they enter presents no such target. They are present everywhere and known nowhere. If this is landing somewhere in you, take a moment to like the video. It helps more people find conversations like this one. And if understanding the specific behaviors that are shaping your social visibility is something you want more of, subscribing makes that work possible. The fourth behavior is consistent asymmetry in investment. reliably giving more than you receive without ever naming the imbalance. This is the behavior of someone who has been conditioned to believe that their needs and preferences are less important than maintaining harmony. They initiate and others respond. They accommodate and others accept the accommodation. They remember birthdays, remember what matters to other people, show up reliably for others' moments, and rarely receive equivalent attention in return. And because the asymmetry is never named, the social environment has no information to work with that would allow it to correct. The other people in these relationships are not calculating the imbalance and choosing to exploit it. They are simply operating in a system that has been configured to function without requiring their full investment, and they behave accordingly. Invisibility, in this case, is the natural outcome of having trained others that you don't need to be seen to be counted on. The fifth behavior is confusing physical presence with emotional presence. The person who experiences this form of invisibility is typically not absent from social situations. They are present in every required way. They attend. They listen. They respond when addressed, and they are not fully there. Something in their attention is partially elsewhere, managing an internal process, monitoring the social environment, replaying something from earlier in the day, or simply not quite inhabiting the present moment with the fullness that makes a person feel real to the people they're with. Genuine presence is registered by others not through any single signal but through the quality of attention. A person brings the sense that they are fully in the exchange, that what is happening between you is actually landing on them, that they are available to be affected by the conversation. When that quality is absent, when a person is technically there, but emotionally, somewhere in between the social brain registers, the absence, even though it cannot identify it, and the person is experienced as slightly less real, slightly less vivid, slightly easier to overlook. Here is the paradox that holds all five behaviors together. None of them are the behavior of someone who doesn't want to be seen. They are, every single one of them, the behavior of someone who has learned through specific experiences, in specific environments, that being seen has costs that being invisible does not. The physical contraction protects against the exposure of being looked at. The qualifying language protects against the risk of being wrong. The adaptation protects against the friction of being different. The asymmetric investment protects against the vulnerability of being the one who needs something. And the absent presence protects against the specific kind of hurt that comes from being fully in an experience that doesn't fully receive you. Invisibility is not a personality trait. It is a protection. And protections, by their nature, are responses to something. Something that happened. Something that taught this specific person, in this specific combination of experiences, that making themselves less visible was the available way to make themselves safer. The path back to visibility does not require becoming someone different. It requires becoming more of who you already are in the specific, gradual, sometimes uncomfortable way of allowing yourself to be seen without immediately managing the exposure. The social world is, in most cases, more ready to receive you than your history has given you reason to believe. What do you think has been the largest invisible barrier between you and being fully seen, and when do you think it was built? Hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.